Guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to run an article titled Meet a Single MOM, an adjunct professor with $430,000 in student debt. I'm in a hole that I can never get out of. And guys, this article is all about a gal who is 48 years old and has racked up almost $500,000 in student loan debt. $430,000 to be exact. And is essentially singing the blues, crying a river about the situation that she's in. Even though, guess what? She's the one that put herself in that situation. And I'm doing this article here for many reasons. In particular, for the younger guys that watch me now, as a warning to use this story to not make the mistake that she did, as well as many others that I'm sure probably you guys know. Many young people are so pushed in, high school and all that, education, college, that they sign up for they go for degrees that really not that enthusiastic about, and also don't exactly pay a return based on what they spend on the student loans. And they rack up these massive loans, and they're stuck with them as an albatross around their neck for the rest of their lives. And I don't want any of you young guys to make that mistake. I'm also doing it for any of the fathers out there that have teenagers right now, and one day down the road, your kids are going to be graduating high school and looking towards their future, and you are there and you make the mistake of allowing them to sign their lives away, literally, for these massive loans and get screwed on the basis they choose something stupid to major in. They're not going to get a return, so forth. Or you, the parent, feels bad about your kid and you don't want them to be debt slaves, so you take on these massive loans because you can't say no to your kids. I don't want that to happen to you guys, so I'm going to go through this story here, real life example, what could happen if people make really boneheaded mistakes and don't think things through and let their emotions get in the way of logic and reason. And of course, I'm doing this because this is a story about a single MOM, and I literally cannot say the other thing, especially in the first 30 seconds of the video, because YouTube will crack down on it. It's happened to me before. I'm doing this as an example to show you that if this was a dude probably singing the blues, he probably wouldn't have got an article written about him, but because it's a single MOM who, a gal, well, then that's warranted for some pity. But at the end of the day, now also guys, before I get into this, I know I'm having a long intro here, but this is important. I want to clear up two very important things, two misconceptions about me and my channel that people mention all the time in the comments. The first big misconception is that people seem to think that I'm anti-education or anti-college, and that is incorrect. What I'm anti is going to school for something to spend all this money and go into debt and time on something that's not going to pay a solid return on your investment of time and money for school. Because at the end of the day, it's always about investments. If you major in some degree that's not going to pay crap and you got this giant student loans, it makes no sense. And I don't want to hear about dreams and all that stuff when, guess what, at the end of the day, you got to pay for it. And even worse yet, people take these loans out and then they cry a river down the road expecting taxpayers like me to have to bail them out. It's nonsense. I'm all for education, but the right kind of education. Simple as that. And if you are not going to go to school, I'm all for seeking a good solid trade where there's always a demand for in good times or bad. Okay, so I'm all for education, but the right type of college education. So if you're going to spend that money, there's what you're going to go for, there is a solid demand for it, and it will justify the expense. That's what I'm trying to make. That's the point I'm trying to make. But a lot of guys they mix that up and don't get that, okay? The second thing I want to cover here is a lot of foreigners that watch me here they live in countries where their college education is paid for by the government, hence taxpayers. And they don't understand why it's not the same way here. And that's another thing, is that here in the United States, we spent a ton of money on defense spending. And we can go back and forth about politics on that, which I really don't want to get into. But at the end of the day, a lot of the countries that point the fingers at us saying you should be like us, you should pay for the health care, you should pay for the college education, all these other things, they don't spend that kind of money in defense because Guess what? Guess whose umbrella protection they are under? Ding, ding, ding. Ours. So, and I'm not saying this with a grin on my face trying to be smug, but I want to point out we spend on other things, okay? And so that's the difference between here in the United States and other countries. That's why the other countries can spend a lot more on all these things, childcare and education, all that stuff, because we spend a big chunk of our dough on defense. It is what it is. So, now I'm going to get into this article here, and I'm going to add my 2 cents. Hopefully as a warning to the young guys that care to watch this video, and also to the fathers out there that one day can make the right choice to help their kids out in the long run, or themselves. Because a lot of fathers, the parents will take on these big loans for their kids, and they can't ever retire. And they have these giant debts around them forever, and ultimately they'll come to burden the kids down the road. I want that to happen. Okay. I went on 5 minutes there. Thank you for bearing with me. Starts off and says, Maria had a goal to teach at a university full-time. Today, she absolutely regrets pursuing that goal. Absolutely regrets. And you're going to see why. While Maria's undergraduate education, which she completed in 2001, was funded through scholarships and Pell Grants, she knew more advanced degrees would help give her a leg up in university teaching, especially as a woman in the industry. So she pursued a master's degree and a PhD, the latter which took 7 years to complete. So the bachelor's degree wasn't too bad, it seems, with Pell Grants and scholarships and all that, but where she got hammered was the master's and PhDs. And it's gotten her nowhere. It was not a decision she took lightly, and at the time she believed the commitment would be worth it. Maria, who requested her last name be held for privacy reasons, extensively researched the program, and as statistics for employment post-graduation looked promising. However, she was unable to land a full-time university job after graduation in 2014 and found herself unable to afford her student loan payments. There you go. It all sounds fine and dandy when you're researching it and your hopes are high, but then when reality sets in and for whatever reason at that time you can't get a job, you're stuck with those loans. And you got to pay for them. End of story. Or people get them in, deferment, if you will, but the interest keeps piling on. You know, guys, people could literally go down to a Ferrari dealership and try to buy a Ferrari, and they'll say, no way, you can't afford it. But if somebody wants to get a loan for college that they certainly can't afford down the road, they're more than happy to give it. And it boils down to not just the greed of the banks, some people are going to say, but let's be honest, there's so many politicians that they hear the cries of the people that the kids should be able to go to school and do this, this, and this. And they're like, okay. And they make it that people can get so much in loans. It's ridiculous. And they can't afford to pay back. At the end of the day, we're all responsible for our own actions, but also parents need to be aware of these things. Their kids don't make these mistakes, but also these young adults need to be aware of this too. The problem is that young adults think they know everything and don't want to listen to their parents. But at the end of the day, it boils down to our own choices. You make decisions as adults, you make your bed, you have to lie in it. And it is unfortunate. There are people suffering, and I don't want to see anybody suffering, but it is what it is. So I don't want you guys to ever make the mistake that a lot of these people do. She goes on. Now at 48 years old, Maria's student loan balance is $430,000, all from her advanced degrees, per documents reviewed by Insider. She says, I'll probably be paying it off for the rest of my life, she told Insider. I hate to say this, and it's morbid, but I'll probably die still owing student loans. It's terrible. This is why she'd go back in time, she would tell her younger self, don't do this. And probably her younger self wouldn't listen anyway. But you have to look at the long term. You have to look at the situation. You can't just go what your emotions are telling you right in the moment. A lot of people, they're all about focusing on their dreams. My dreams. I got to go for my dreams. Well, if your dreams put you in a miserable life that you can't afford literally to buy a stick of butter because you got to pay back the student loans and they're so high every month, that dream is coming at a very high, unrealistic cost. Not everybody can have what they want. That's the problem. And a lot of parents don't want to tell their kids that. Parents got the most powerful 2-letter word in the English language is N-O. No. That's what you got to tell your kids. That's a lot of people need to understand. It can't always be done. You got to pursue something that's going to be there's going to be a demand for and justify the expense. Otherwise, find something else. She says it's been no easy road for Maria since she attained her degrees. At the end of 2015, Maria lost her first job in human resources and could not make payments on her student debt. In 2018, her daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, and a large portion of her income went into the medical treatment, causing her to defer her loans while interest on them continued to grow. Well, let me tell you, I'm sorry for her and her daughter. I mean, that's terrible, But again, these are things somebody has to potentially anticipate. I tell you guys all the time about the importance of having an emergency fund and having money set aside, because you never know, shit's gonna happen. And right here, she could ever have seen that happening, and that's such a shame. But obviously she's gonna take care of her daughter, but still has those loans. See what I'm talking about, guys? As a full-time human resources representative and part-time adjunct professor in Michigan, Maria now makes a 5-figure salary while supporting her 15-year-old daughter on her own, with very minimal child support from her father. She doesn't see a future that doesn't include student debt. Well, here's a question. Why is she working in human resources? If she has a PhD, I would imagine, she should be going for something the best she could possibly make in the private sector. Because you're going to see in a second, you're going to see she's working for a nonprofit to hope to wipe out the debts. In that situation, something in the private sector that, I don't know what her PhD is in, but something that could get her the best possible pay. It says, my daughter's medical bills are much more important to me. If Marie could have a do-over, she would never have gotten her PhD. There you go, guys. Learn. Although she said she prepared herself as best she could for the financial toll it would take, there's no way she could have anticipated a layoff or the medical bills for her daughter. Right. But again, that's life. Things happen. I'm not saying that that's justified. I'm just saying this is why I tell you guys it's so important for you guys to put away money, emergency funds, and live cheap, or always live beneath your means, to have money set aside in investments so that if something happens, it's there. Because she's in deep shit. Of her total student loan debt, more than $70,000 is interest that accumulated while her student loan payments were on hold. $70,000 in interest that just accumulated while they were on hold. During which she cashed out her 401k and lived on unemployment benefits. She says, obviously paying my daughter's medical bills are much more important to me, but she wishes her student loan company had given her more assistance to control her growing debt load. Now, I don't know if she means with regards to interest, or they would have stopped her from taking more. I read an article a couple months ago, and I really wish I saved it, about a father who took out all these loans for his kid or kids, and now he's 58 years old and is pretty much going to go to the grave with all these student loans. And he blamed the system for allowing him to take out all those loans. But at the end of the day, this was a grown-ass man that signed on the dotted lines and took out these loans. He, again, should have said the most powerful 2-letter word in the English dictionary to his kids. No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be trapped in this and have to work literally to the day I die, so you can have your dream. Find another dream or find another way. Kids nowadays, if they're going to go to school, go for something they should definitely have a return on their investment of time and effort and money. That's something there's a strong demand for. It makes no sense to spend all this money for a degree that there's so many people that have those degrees that employers are paying very little for. It makes no sense. You want to major in something that there is a great demand for, and they're going to pay accordingly. Because remember, guys, there was a time period where most people didn't go to school. They did a form of manual labor, worked in factories and things like that. And some people went to school, and those that went to school obviously were paid quite well because the supply of people with college degrees was small. And then as time went on, more and more people were going to school, and the supply of people with college degrees got greater and greater. And your basic supply and demand economics, if you have a very small supply and a lot of demand, the price for those services and goods are high. On the other hand, if there's a huge supply and not as much demand, the price being paid for those goods and services are less and less. This is what you have today. Tons of people with college degrees, but the amount of the supply of degrees hasn't. There's not enough demand. There's not enough demand. I can't say it right, but you get my point here, guys. I'm a little mixed. It's been a long day. The point is, the price which they're paying because of the huge supply of college degrees, the price is paid for salaries and wages for those. Not a whole lot, because everybody has those degrees. That's a problem. So it needs to be diversified. People need to consider going for a good solid trade in something that there's always a demand for. Or maybe perhaps in the military that gives them skills and so forth, or eventually going into their own business. But if everybody's, and that's the thing is, a lot of politicians want to give everybody free education. Well, if everybody has bachelor's degrees, all those huge supply of bachelor's degrees, it's like, hey, what sets you apart? Then everybody's going to go for master's degrees. Then everybody has master's degrees. Then everybody goes for PhDs. So it makes no sense to rack up all this debt for something that, guess what, you're not going to get paid a whole lot for. So better to go to something that there is a demand for. I know I keep hitting hitting hard on this, but it's very important to address this. I don't want to see you guys end up in a situation like her. Nobody should. It sucks. It really does. But at the end of the day, it's about accountability. She signed on the dotted line. She agreed to this as an adult because, again, she said she started doing the master's and PhD, obviously, when she was older. She knew. And she had a kid. Anyhow, says here, Maria even filed for bankruptcy in 2018, but despite the extreme financial hardship she was under, she was not successful in discharging her loans. She is still an adjunct professor. Marie does not work enough hours to qualify for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF, program, which forgives student debt for public servants, like teachers, after 10 years of qualifying payments. Good Lord, 10 years, she gets $430,000 knocked off her thing. But obviously it's not working out. So again, in my opinion, since this isn't working, what she's doing, something in the private sector that her PhD will pay her a bunch of money. I don't know what she has her PhD in. It doesn't state that. And therefore, then at least, and then she's going to have to live cheap and do the best she can. She has worked in human resources for a nonprofit, which qualifies for the program for nearly a decade. But her zero payments in 2015, while she was unemployed, did not count towards her PSLF progress, even though Federal Student Aid wrote on its website that she should qualify. A student aid representative told Maria they just have to update her payment process to include the time she was making zero payments. But they have to do so, and she's looking at 7 more years of repayment that she's not even sure she can afford to get full loan forgiveness. So, another person who believed the words of the government that we'll give you this, this, and this, and at the end of the day, nope, sorry, tough shit. And again, it sucks, but you're a grown-ass adult. You have to look at the big picture, not just what at the present moment, and really anticipate, can I afford to pay this? Even though this is my dream to get this degree or whatever the hell it is. You got to take accountability, but we're in an age that nobody wants to take accountability. They want to blame everybody else for the problems, have somebody else pay for them. She says, I'm hoping they completely revamp the student loan program. The Education Department recently announced reforms to PSLF, which include going back over denied applications and payments to the program. So there's a chance that Maria may earn a quicker route to loan forgiveness. But with her current financial outlook, she's not confident she can compete with the program and wants President Joe Biden to do more to help millions of borrowers with debt burdens. Translation, canceling the student loan debt. But that's the thing. It doesn't just magically go away. Somebody's got to pay for it. Even those cancellations will go into our national debt. And, of course, taxes aren't going to cover what is going to be spent or gotten rid of in terms of the student loans. So that's going to be more in the money supply and will create more inflation. We certainly don't need more of that now. Or if a certain party has their way, people will pay more in taxes. Let's just say more successful people will pay more in taxes for those that made boneheaded decisions. I shouldn't have to pay more in taxes for debt forgiveness for individuals like her, and there are a lot out there in varying degrees, that didn't look at the big picture. And a lot of you guys are on your purpose, and they're already doing well for yourself and are going to make more money. You shouldn't have to either. It goes on. I know I'm going to get some shit in the comment section about politics. It is what it is. I'm sure those of you who are listening to this right now can't help yourself typing away about your political views. I see it coming a mile away. It says here, and as an insider has previously reported, the overhaul may have already started. Along with PSLF reforms, Biden has canceled student debt for targeted groups of borrowers, including those defrauded by for-profit schools and people with disabilities, acting on his campaign promises of fixing broken loan forgiveness programs. But pressure continues to build on the president to cancel student debt for every American. Yeah, okay, they can cancel it, but somebody's got to pay for it. One way or another, somebody will pay for it. It's about, guys, people got to take accountability. Okay? Nothing's for free. Remember that. Maria will be grateful not only for her own benefit, but to ensure that other young people don't fall into the same debt trap that she did. Well, then the young people need to have smart parents advise the young people. And if those young people aren't going to listen to their parents, then they will suffer the consequences if they're foolish with their decisions. If they're foolish to take on these massive loans and go for things that aren't going to pay a return for that degree. I shouldn't have to pay for it. You shouldn't have to pay for it. Okay? Accountability. It says most people that get these student loans are still young and don't understand the true impact of it, Maria said. So I just feel like there's a lot of overselling in the upfront that puts people in debt like this. Well, let's go back to the article. She said when she got her bachelor's, it was on Pell Grants and scholarships. So it sounds like she was okay. But the real debt racked up for her master's and PhD. And at that point then, doing the math real quick, because it said she was in her 30s when she took those on. So believe me, she wasn't that young. She was a full grown-ass adult that should know what she's doing and so forth. Or those kids that sign on the line that are 18 years old or whatever their age they are, 19, 20. At the end of the day, those young kids, if they're, and knowing how teenagers are, they know everything and don't want to listen to anybody else. Okay, you make your bed and you lie it. But again, people like me that do well, and people like a lot of you that watch me that either are doing well right now or on your path to doing well, you shouldn't have to pay for people's mistakes. But there are a lot of people that think that we should, and I wholeheartedly disagree. So my advice to this lady is that, number one, I wish you all the best, and I'm sorry about your daughter. I really hope things work out. The best thing that she can do is, instead of like sitting around hoping and praying that her political party of choice will make it that cancel all the debt, and we can all do cartwheels and sing Kumbaya, that somebody's going to have to pay for no matter what, whether going on the national debt or raising taxes on people like me, people like you, is to look at the situation and handle it the right way. And the best thing I think she could do in this situation is obviously live as frugally as possible. That way not pissing away money on BS, which she probably is doing, and try to get the best possible job she can get with that PhD in the private sector, not what was the word? I can't think of it. Basically, not private sector, and get as much as she can and do what she can. Because at the end of the day, she made this choice. Again, we're in the era that everyone wants to assign blame to everybody else for their own mistakes. It's nonsense. Part of being an adult is accepting responsibility for your actions. I've done things in my life that I cannot change and were screw-ups, and they're my fault and my fault. They're my fault. Mine alone. And I'm sure many of you guys have made mistakes too, and they were your fault, if you're honest with yourselves, and it is what it is. But just, it drives me crazy, just the finger pointing. Blaming everybody. You made the choice. But anyhow, guys, like I said before, I'm doing this to help you guys as an example, because this video may not be very popular compared to my other ones here. But again, for you young guys watching this, and you really want to go to school, please, from SSM to you, please, really think it through. Really think about what you're going to school for. Do the research. Is there a strong demand for the degree you're going to get? Are you going to make a good return, a good salary, and so forth? Really do the homework. Don't just go for something because it's your dream and just say, damn the cost, I'll figure it out later. I guarantee you she's someone that was probably like that, or other people just like her. You can't do that. And for the parents out there who are watching this, because I know I got a lot of parents, really think about it before you can't say no to your kids and take on these massive amounts of debts because you don't want your kids burdened with it. It's far better that you speak to them and they learn. You say, no, I'm going to take care of me. I've been taking care of you your whole life. Because otherwise, you can end up going to the grave with all this debt and ultimately being a burden on your kids because you can't retire. Because believe me, if you can't work but you have all this debt, they're going to have to take care of you. So one way or another, there's going to be a burden there. Raise them right, make them understand these things. I don't want anybody hurting from these types of mistakes and these types of things. So, and tell those kids, for the young guys watching this, or the parents that have kids, encourage something else if college is not for them. A good solid trade. There's always a demand. It may not be as prestigious as the advanced degrees and all that, but you know what? There's always going to be a demand for a plumber or other types of blue-collar work, a good solid trade. Always going to be a demand in good times and bad. Something to think about. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And, guys, as always, if you come across a great article you'd like me to cover, by all means, email it to me. I'll certainly cover it down the road. And this also goes for any good personal stories you may have about your life, things you've overcome, challenges, whatever happens to be, just write it out, send it to me. And if it's definitely good, I will cover in a future video. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.